Hello, everybody. I'm back doing another reaction video to Thinking Critical. Once again, uh, shout out to the original creator. Make sure like you follow uh, the content, his content. Really like his stuff, and what he wants to. What I'm gonna talk about. Well, I'm gonna stop and play, press pause and play and give my points on. But what he's bringing up about the uh, 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 the praise for changing Marvel and broke it. So it's about the mainly about the creator of Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. So like this video, leave a comment below. Let me know your opinions are once we finish the reaction video. So let's get to it.
And I think it's an unfortunate thing. They try to write something that they think a certain audience might enjoy. I've never been able to do that because I can't put myself in the mind of other people.
The top 9 best-selling comics in 2025 list just dropped. Only one Marvel Comics title made the cut, a crossover with DC, Deadpool Batman. So why did Marvel, the house that Stan and Jack built?
I do like the recent Marvel and DC crossovers recently. They've been handled so perfectly, the way it probably should be handled, where it's just, these, for the most part, uh, anthology adventures. They're short, sweet, to the point. That's how it probably should be handled. Don't need to overcomplicate it beyond that.
Becomes something comic readers actively avoid because they changed the rule of comics. They stopped writing for comic readers and started chasing millennials. And the people who did it bragged about it. In a 2016 TED Talk, Miss Marvel co-creator G. Willow Wilson proudly explains how Marvel changed its definition of a successful comic. If you accept her definition, the outcome was unavoidable. Entertainment became optional, story became secondary. What mattered was the message. And that's still true at Marvel today. Once you hear her map it out, you realize Marvel didn't lose its way. They chose this. Bad comics are the standard now. Before we go any further, if you're looking for a comic company that still values comic fans, look no further than the 616 Comics. They're home to the best deals on ratio variant covers and produce the sickest exclusive covers you can only find on the 616comics.com. Discount code in the video description. Now, back to G. Willow Wilson's confession. To understand how this collapse was engineered from within, you have to start with a moment Wilson said she knew Miss Marvel was doomed to fail.
A series like this was, by the superhero industry math of the time, doomed to fail. It was the trifecta of death. New characters don't sell. Female characters don't sell. Minority characters don't sell. In order for a series like this to succeed, it would have to shatter decades of conventional wisdom.
There it is. Her opening assumption, going into Miss Marvel, is implicit but unmistakable. Comic book fans are too bigoted to support female or minority heroes. Miss Marvel was treated like a loss leader before a single issue shipped. Can you imagine Brian Michael Bendis creating Miles Morales with that mindset? If he had, failure really would have been inevitable. Marvel, Disney, and Sony would have left hundreds of millions of dollars on the table. But Bendis didn't. He treated Miles like a character who had to work because Marvel expected him to. Miles was written to entertain readers, to build momentum, and to earn his place in Marvel's pantheon. That's how you create a new hero who actually succeeds.
Yeah, and some out there might argue is like, oh well, when Miles Morales came out, everybody got all these little hate stuff and all the races and all this other stuff. Sure, there's always gonna be bigoted, racist a-holes out there in the world. They ain't gonna probably read this, irregardless. What you had to concern yourself with is, since it's like any new character, irregardless of race or sexual orientation or gender, have a tough hill to climb, because people are not going to just instantly like you. It's very rare that it happens. I think Harley Quinn is probably like the top one, the top one I can think of that was like instantly liked as like a new character. I'm pretty sure there's definitely been others, but she's like probably like the main one that right out the gate, instant likability. But she also had great character and layers to her immediately. She had like a job. She has like her own like kind of psychosis and like feelings and likes and dislikes and hobbies and blah blah blah. Same thing with Miles Morales. He was more than just a black Puerto Rican from Brooklyn. He had a family he loved. He was very smart and kind of geeky and insecure about things. Way before he got bitten by the spider and had to learn on his own because the original, well, like his universe's Ultimate Peter Parker at that time died, so he had to learn, pretty much how to be his own version of his universe's Spider-Man at that time. Way before he got roped into the 616 mainline universe. That's when, of course, he eventually, through some shenanigans, because I did like a comic book review of the first time Miles Morales met mainline Peter Parker for the first time and did a crossover. Spider-Men, mind you, that's what it's called. Check out that review up on the channel. But because of their interactions, he grew to some level of self-confidence about himself, knowing that, okay, this is how, it's not too dissimilar to how the Spider-Verse movie was, but just like he be able to be not only learn from his predecessor, but also put his own spin on it, because he can't do things like Peter Parker would. He had to take what he learned from Peter Parker, but take the things he found beneficial and put his own spin to it, so he can be his own unique character. And moving forward, he became a lifelong beloved character for the masses, not just for black Puerto Rican people. Some of these writers want to take shortcuts and expect people to instantly like whatever they put to page without, going through the trials and tribulations. And it's like a dare to say like, Miss Marvel wasn't like, I wasn't feeling the character like that. Oh, you're racist, and write it off. Instead of just making great stories to elevate the character. As a matter of fact, that's the biggest problem with not only with Kamala Khan, but also Miles Morales, or even someone like X-23, who is her own Wolverine. They don't have their own kind of rose gallery. They usually have to share with their predecessors, which is kind of weird and not very fair to the characters themselves. I read the origin story of Kamala Khan, and her first villain wasn't all that special. It wasn't like any kind of effort put into it, but I don't recall at any point since Kamala Khan's creation that she's been her when she was created, it was like 2010, around that time maybe. Since then, it's 2026 now. By this point, she should have at least 10 Rose Gallery, 10 of her own that she doesn't have to share with anybody. Same thing with Miles. He should, by this point, have 20 of his own Rose Gallery without having to share Peter's Rose Gallery. That is weird. He fought some villains, but doesn't really have like a staying power. It's a very like one-off stuff, which is weird. Where's his Green Goblin? He doesn't need exactly be Green Goblin, but you know that arch enemy that keeps coming back. Who's his Joker? Who's Kamala Khan's Joker? That's what the problem is. They don't want to put, some of these writers don't want to put in the effort like that. They just want to use them as like, well, at least Kamala Khan specifically, and less so maybe with Miles Morales. But Kamala Khan it seems like her and quite a few others, usually in the X-Men stuff, are just mascots. You've seen like those, like the Pride Month comics, the Black History Month comics, where they got all these people from this demographic all lined up, piling around, hey, like my buddy and all this stuff. And once the month's over, that is it. You ain't putting that much effort into these characters because you treat them like mascots to push some narrative instead of treating them like characters that have like a multitude of personality traits and likes and dislikes and hobbies and friend groups and stuff like that, and villains, interesting villains, not one-offs, very surface level bad guys. It's lazy.
Marvel already had the blueprint. Stan and Jack proved it. Chris Claremont proved it. Bendis proved it with Miles. New characters can work. Diverse characters certainly can work. The rule was always the same. Tell good stories, respect the audience, and let the sales decide. Instead of trusting those rules, sales and fandom, they decided the rules were problematic. Write that down. It's important. Then came the sweet taste of irony. October 2014. Ms. Marvel Volume 1 releases. It's a surprise success. Bookstores sell out. The trade hits the New York Times bestseller list. For a moment, it looked like Marvel hit the jackpot. A new superhero fans were ready to back in a big way. But Kamala Khan never reached those heights again. Despite years of aggressive promotion, the character bombed in comics, video games, television, and film. Why? Because Marvel Comics and G. Willow Wilson slipped a poison pill into Ms. Marvel from the very first issue. By her own admission, they assumed comic fans were bigots who would never...
And it was like a good idea. They should have leaned hard into her with the whole Inhuman thing with her, because apparently, at least I'm not sure how correct this is. I'm pretty sure it's just like their creator just kind of backpedaling. But at that time when Kamala Khan was being created, Marvel lost the license, at least in terms of the TV and movies and stuff like that. Lost control for some reason, because it's the comics. You can do whatever the heck, it's your creations. But they lost the rights to the X-Men. That's why we didn't see them all that often around this time. So they was pushing Inhumans hard around this time. But the problem is they treated the Inhumans like they were the X-Men. And the X-Men's issues, by that I mean problems, does not fit with the Inhumans. It's like trying to fit a square peg into a round circle. They got two different worldviews, problems, issues, things that they have to concern themselves with, and enemies that they fight. It's just very different circumstances. If it was me, I would have treated, if it was true that she initially wanted Kamala to be a mutant. Now they kind of retroactively made her a mutant Inhuman hybrid, which is stupid as hell, but I digress. But if it was me, okay, I could not make her a mutant, but you want me to make her Inhuman, I'm going to make her one of the best Inhumans out there. Give her some great stories, and treat her, I said this multiple times every time I bring up Kamala Khan, I would have treated her like the Jubilee for the Inhumans. Remember like the X-Men animated series where we were introduced to Jubilee and she was like our eyes into the world of the X-Men? That's what you should have done with Kamala Khan, meaning the royal family. She never really hung out with the royal family all that much. Very little. She either with the Champions, Miles Morales, or doing her own thing, or with Captain Marvel, or the OG Miss Marvel. That's the majority of the time she spent in terms of the superhero community. Very little screen time when it comes to the actual Inhumans who you share DNA with. She should have been constantly with them. Matter of fact, she should have been like one of, like, not necessarily anybody's sidekick, but learning the ropes through, like, you know, Karnak or Medusa or Crystal or Black Bolt especially. And because the Inhumans, you know, after a certain point was struggling a bit, because of her popularity, she could have easily boosted them by proxy. But no, you didn't do that, which was stupid.
Ever accept Kamala Khan, and they wrote the book as if their own customers were the enemy. But the audience showed up to support the book. They wanted a new heroic underdog. What they got instead were lectures in cultural lessons. The audience didn't reject Ms. Marvel. Ms. Marvel rejected the audience. A well-run publishing house would have looked at this first wave of support and the crash that followed and said, we were wrong. There is an audience for Kamala Khan. Comic books didn't need to change. Marvel's assumptions about their audience did. Unfortunately, that kind of leadership wasn't in the room at Marvel in 2014. What followed wasn't an accident. It was the beginning of a decade-long decline.
Since there was a possibility that this series was going to be an epic flop, I felt I was at liberty to tell exactly the kind of story I wanted to tell. We had nothing to lose.
We had nothing to lose is something you expect to hear from Stan Lee in the early 60s, before Fantastic Four #1, when Marvel barely existed and Atlas Comics was an afterthought next to DC. You might expect to hear it in the late 90s when Marvel was crawling out of bankruptcy and throwing Hail Marys just to survive. But in 2013, 2014, Marvel had everything to lose. The company was coming off its third great creative peak after the Stan and Jack years and the Jim Shooter era. Events like Infinity and Age of Ultron were still clearing 6 figures per issue. Not peak sales, but numbers today's Marvel would kill for.
$15 billion is a lot of money. That's how much Lendio has helped small businesses get through our loan.
In Outside Comics, maybe you've heard about this one, the MCU had already blown up. Iron Man, a former B-lister, was now a billion-dollar franchise. Scott Lang, the Ant-Man, was on his way to headlining a trilogy of films. Marvel Comics wasn't in Hail Mary mode. It was the creative engine feeding the most successful media empire in entertainment. When Stan Lee took risks, he was trying to save a dying company. When G. Willow Wilson says she was free to tell exactly the kind of story I wanted to tell, she was cashing checks from a Disney-backed imprint riding the hottest movie franchise in history. That's not bravery. That's the safest stunt imaginable in modern comics. It was an excuse that freed editorial to stop treating readers as customers altogether.
This was like the downfall. This is the pinpoint era, all new, all different. When writers got woke and lazy. I think like the only person that kind of came out of this unscathed is Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Iron Man, and maybe Black Panther. How often do you see Lady Thor? And stop. I'm thinking about like Jessica Drew right here. I can't help but be reminded about the black version from the alternate universe in the Spider-Verse sequel. Stop, because like Tiana Taylor, who just won like a Golden Globe recently for that Leonardo DiCaprio film. I forgot what it's called. And most of the promotion and commercial trailers about that is just her using an assault rifle while pregnant as all hell. Stop putting these pregnant women. It's not powerful or like very feminine to see like a pregnant woman in a situation where she shouldn't be in, to try to. It's not sexist to say that. It's like, no, you're pregnant. You can't be out crime fighting in that. Powers or not. So dumb. Like, what are you trying to accomplish with that? What are you saying that? Oh, you're telling young girls like, oh, even when you're pregnant, you can kick ass. No, you can barely be on your feet. Like, you act like you've never been around pregnant women before. They barely want to be on their feet doing stuff, let alone riding on motorcycles or shooting assault rifles.
And start treating the direct market like a nuisance they could afford to lose, an excuse to reshape comics into something more instructional than entertaining. The Burger King Kids Club, if you will. Bright colors, moral lessons, all delivered in a tone that talks down to the people paying for entertainment. But comics aren't after-school specials running on good intentions. They survive on readers coming back every single week for their superhero fix. That requires great characters, pacing, stakes, escalation.
Like that anymore either. When the All New, All Different happened, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show was still popping. Not popping, it was still going. They try to, and most people like Agent Coulson, but we haven't seen him from over a decade in comics. He might pop up here and there, and I think in like the Squadron Supreme stuff here and there. But outside of that, he's have not been like relevant in the comics.
Payoff, and the kind of stories G. Willow Wilson and company felt free to tell, proudly checked none of those boxes. But Marvel thought they could pretend Wednesday Warriors didn't matter because trades would show up in every school library and get glowing reviews. They treated 2014 as a now or
who is this guy here? This Marvel's version of Apache Chief or something? I don't know.
Never moment. Not to tell great stories, but to fix comic books forever. This idea did indeed become a self-fulfilling prophecy. By 2025, Marvel Comics has nothing left to lose because they lost the fans who built the company. Because Wilson wasn't writing a new character, she was changing.
You know what I really would like to see? That Marvel and DC Comics, who've been pushing a lot of this agenda crap and making all these characters like gay or bi or whatever, they slowly but surely start doing less and less in that until eventually you start to notice, you know, I've been seeing Iceman with a lot of women, lately. You know, I did take notice that John Kent's Superman has been kind of like digging on this chick lately, and just all this like over representation, overdone nonsense has been kind of scaled back quietly, not like in a snap, but just slowly but quietly, knowing that that's not a hot ticket anymore because it's so dumb and it loses money.
Who the company thought it was writing for. And that mistake would haunt the next decade.
I wasn't interested in writing some kind of model minority book. I wanted to do more. I wanted to create a love letter to the younger millennials who were the series' target audience. I wanted to create a hero from a background that is often misunderstood and maligned, for a generation that is often misunderstood and maligned.
Creating outcast archetype characters that readers who feel misunderstood can relate to is not a novel concept in comic books. Comic readers were connecting with that setup long before G. Willow Wilson learned how to write as a child. The fact is, Arnold Drake did it better with Doom Patrol. Stan, Jack, and Claremont certainly did it better with X-Men. Warren Ellis did it better with Midnighter and Apollo. And the list literally goes on for miles before you reach G. Willow Wilson or any of the modern Marvel writers who thought they were breaking ground. The difference is, professionals like Warren Ellis knew that if Midnighter and Apollo were only about being gay, it wouldn't land. Not because comic readers are homophobes, but because we read superhero comics for the main event, heroism. So they were introduced as badasses first, lovers second, and guess what? Nobody cared. Because the characters were simply awesome. Kamala wasn't written to connect with fans. She was written to correct them. The whole comic centered on her identity as a female Muslim superhero. Also, not a novel concept. Marvel had introduced Dust more than a decade earlier. Miss Marvel comics weren't about defeating villains and saving the day. They were about challenging the system, validating identity, and teaching readers about...
Yeah, Dust was like, she's a mutant. I remember Dust in not X-Men Evolution, Wolverine and the X-Men. She was pretty prominent in that show and was Muslim. If you like, of course, the creator G. Will Wilson, who created Kamala Khan, she still could have did that, but she just wouldn't be the first Muslim superhero anymore, or at least not a prominent one, not the only prominent one. They could have, like, if you want to push like a Muslim superheroes, you gotta look through your freaking catalog, people, because you had Husk, who like as I remember, she's dressed in like the Muslim garb, but she can turn into sand.
Out her culture. From this point on, the comics were aimed at institutions and online validation, not the people in comic shops. This shift is the hinge for everything Marvel does for the next decade. But here's the real kick in the pants. That misunderstood generation Wilson was writing for, they didn't want Miss Marvel either. Not in comic shops, not in video games, not even on Disney+. They found manga, Attack on Titan, One Piece, Spy Family, because those books delivered real conflict, stakes, power fantasies, and emotion, not lectures. Marvel wasn't just out of touch with its old readers, it completely misunderstood the ones it wanted.
Yeah, that's why, like, you know, Eastern properties are just dominating, because they haven't forgotten what makes great storytelling. With multifaceted characters, both the villains and the heroes, even the supporting characters, side characters, you know, sometimes. There was like a understanding what the readers want. There's like a symbiosis between the manga writer and the reader. Comic book writers over in the West has, by and large, completely forgotten about that, because they invited some more so activists as quote-unquote writers to put out crap and expect people just to instantly like it because it was just because it's a woman, just because it's a person of color. It's like, that's not good enough. You don't just to shortcut your way into the same popularity as something like Spider-Man or Batman. Like I said, it's lazy.
Two, the people Wilson claimed to represent voted with their wallets, and they didn't choose Kamala, they chose Naruto. Once Marvel gave themselves permission to stop writing for their customers, all Wilson and Marvel editorial needed to
And notice how it's not racist because people buy so much manga with all these women and men, and a few of them like happen to be the LGBT variety, like very rare, but it is still a thing. Like, matter of fact, Naruto, if you remember in like the Land of Waves arc, there's a woman or a boy who's very androgynous, very progressive at that time, mind you, and nobody think nothing of it. It wasn't like a big scandal, and nobody was writing letters like, "How dare you put this?" It was none of that. It was played straight, no pun intended, and it wasn't like a big deal. They treated it like a character. They didn't make a whole thing out of it. That's the problem. They want to make a big showy thing out of these characters to try to get like these social brownie points. After, I mean, some people kind of picked up on this early on, but I think it's gotten so inundated that it's kind of hard to miss just by the common man.
do was define what success would mean moving forward.
None of my other books had sold on this scale, so he might well ask, what's the secret? And I told him honestly, the secret is the audience. The angry, joyful, uninhibited, multi-ethnic, multi-everything millennial audience. All Adrian and Sana and I did was hold up a mirror.
She forgot, or maybe never realized, readers don't buy comics to see themselves, they buy them for something more. For escapism. For decades, Marvel Comics became the market leader with a very simple measure of success. Did the book sell, and did fans care? That's not what Wilson is describing. Her multi-everything millennial audience wasn't the people actually buying.
Look at this mess. Oh God! You just make good characters. Just make good characters. And Riri Williams is like the worst of the worst out of this set here, because it's like, oh, she's smart and black, and she made like an Iron Man suit out of like, you know, Iron Man's things. God forbid she actually learned from the guy, but if you can't have a smart young black female learn from a white straight male, God forbid.
In comics every Wednesday, it was an online avatar of the audience she wanted. The one that loves being flattered, loves being told it's special, but doesn't have a dime to spend. Under Marvel's new standard, the hero didn't even need to work as a character.
If I was writing for like an Iron Man book, I would be like quick in at the ready to like put Ironheart in the sidekick role where she freaking belongs and have her learn something from Iron Man. Teaming up, not saying like she gotta be put down to prop him up or vice versa, but just like with Batman and Robin, that's what needs to be treated with her, because she has not earned the spot that, you know, some of these other writers are trying to force down our throat. She hasn't earned that right. Same thing with like Kamala Khan to a certain extent. It's not the same egregious way as Ironheart, but even Miles Morales to a certain degree, he still has to learn something from Peter Parker. And Amadeus Cho, like, oh, totally awesome Hulk. Blah. Well, it's like, had to learn something from Bruce Banner, doesn't he? To be how to be like a proper Hulk. Learn how to control the rage and the gamma powers and all this other stuff.
They had to directly represent a community editorial in Wilson deemed marginalized. And once that was the job, the game changed. Success became Twitter likes, not sales. Success became flattering headlines, not customer retention.
You know, it would be really effed up and very petty of me. If I was writing for Marvel Comics, I would like get like American Chavez. And because, you know, sexuality is fluid, I guess it would be just as fluid if I have this lesbian character make out with a dude. Have that go viral and have like people up in arms. It's like, oh, I thought it was like very fluid, gender fluid, right? Like, are you kink shaming? Just like just throw all that same buzzwords and, you know, epithets right back in their freaking face. If I was being really petty.
Success became getting invited to the White House because you created a Muslim superhero. not whether anyone was still reading the book by issue number 12. Marvel and G. Willow Wilson convinced themselves they were running a post-sales business. Cultural relevance was the real product now, and the only way to stay relevant was to keep sending out the right message, or as they described it, becoming a lifestyle brand. Titles can collapse, relaunch, and collapse again without anyone admitting the idea didn't work. Because Twitter and the media kept insisting it was important. And there was a deeper side effect. If a character like Kamala Khan is categorized as marginalized, then putting her in real danger, or letting her be wrong, becomes dangerous to the brand. Any actual struggle became problematic. Look at Civil War II. Kamala participates in pre-crime enforcement under Captain Marvel, detaining people before they commit a crime. The comic frames her actions as heroic, but morally, she crosses a pretty serious line there, and she's never held accountable. No apology, no reckoning, no consequences for the people she helped lock up. Not even Alan Moore himself can write a compelling superhero when the protagonist starts out as a flawless paladin who can't fail, can't be challenged, and can never make a mistake. There's no tension, no risk, no story, just boredom. So readers walked. In Marvel, never seriously asked why. They were too busy basking in the social media praise from people who showed support with likes and retweets, but not with pull lists. Marvel stopped using sales and fandom as their metric and basically disabled the only alarm system that could have fixed them. This was the straw that broke the camel's back. Once Marvel Comics abandoned real measures of success, more G. Willow Wilsons became inevitable.
Another theme that emerges both in conversation with my younger readers and in the kinds of books they tend to consume is the following. If the system is broken, you cannot fix the system from...
Yeah, the comic book companies, both with Marvel and DC specifically, need to... Daddy needs to come home and clear out everything. Maybe not everything, but do some cleaning house to a serious degree. Damn the consequences. If you ain't about like making awesome characters with good stories and you're about pushing some kind of agenda, get the fuck out. I don't care if you boycott, get your shit, pack up your stuff, get out, find work elsewhere. I don't care. That's what needs to happen. Seriously. A serious clean of house. It's gone too crazy. And nowadays, we don't have consistent good comics like that. A lot of us have to practically hyper focus on certain comics that we can get some level of enjoyment out of it, because it's supposed to be escapism, like Thinking Critical mentioned. But we get inundated with more real world issues, marginalized people, and like social justice warrior crap. And it's like, God, I just want to read a freaking Spider-Man book without being lectured. It's not that hard.
Within. You have to create a new one. To me, it seemed completely plausible for a 16-year-old superhero to fight injustice and put herself in harm's way simply to put a dent in that broken system, because that is exactly what her real-life counterparts are doing.
Wilson was describing what she thought the millennial audience wanted from heroes. Not defenders of the world, but challengers to it. Rebels, rule breakers, system smashers. So that's what she tried to give them with Miss Marvel. A superhero who didn't fit Marvel's legacy, but questioned it.
And there's not that many of them to boost those sales. So that's why Kamala Khan constantly get her runs canceled or ended after a certain number.
Kamala Khan was supposed to be a gateway to a new audience. And for a moment, it looked like it worked. But in reality, the people she wrote the comic to rebel against, Marvel's core readers, were the ones who actually showed up. Marvel editorial didn't understand Miss Marvel's short-lived success. They learned the wrong lessons. We've all heard that one before. They thought the new formula was identity first, message-driven heroes. In trying to appeal to millennials, Wilson ended up helping to break Marvel's system, the one built by Stan and Jack that spawned an empire. Once that mindset took hold, the floodgates opened. The mission wasn't to tell better stories anymore. It was to engineer a hero for every demographic imaginable. Kelly Sue DeConnick had already reshaped...
Look at this mess. This is like a overall mess. Not every demographic need to be seen. Golly. There's always going to be something new. Somebody identified this, that, and the third. Just like, oh my God, just make good characters. I don't need to be Muslim to appreciate Kamala Khan. I don't need to be Asian to appreciate a particular character. Heck, I don't need to be a woman to appreciate somebody like Scarlet Witch. You don't need to like have every demographic underneath the freaking blue moon. You could, but you're not doing it organically. clearly like you're doing fulfilling some kind of quota. It's like, oh, what marginalized person we can like push through and create then and just pump out like a processing machine and just like go in one end and out the other and down the conveyor belt. No human touch at all.
Carol Danvers into an abrasive, joyless Captain Marvel. Marvel hired novice Gabby Rivera to introduce America Chavez, a Latin American lesbian superhero. The MCU's flagship hero, Tony Stark, was replaced with Riri Williams, a young black teenage super genius. Bruce Banner was sidelined so Amadeus Cho, a Korean-American teenage prodigy, could become the Hulk. Sam Wilson was handed the mantle of Captain America. Even Vision, an android, was given a daughter ready to inherit the role. Instead of giving these new heroes a real shot to prove themselves, through great arcs, character growth, fan support, Marvel turned them into, you guessed it, diversity checkmarks. When these replacements failed, and they did, not because they were diverse, but because they were never written to entertain, nothing was learned. The decisions weren't questioned, the creators weren't challenged. Marvel editorial never admitted a single...
Gotta have your females do that whole Rosie the Riveter pose like it means something nowadays. It doesn't.
Mistake. Instead, they blamed the audience. Readers were told they were too ignorant, too regressive, too bigoted to understand why this was actually good. These massive failures didn't disprove the theory that the old system was broken. Inside Marvel, they confirmed it. At this point, criticism stopped being about storytelling at all. Questioning a character or a plot became a challenge to a creator's moral standing or worldview. Anything other than effusive praise was treated as hostility. Marvel didn't just stop listening to fans, they wired their new system to ensure they never had to again. Marvel comics don't suck today because they forgot what works. They suck because Marvel changed the rules on purpose, so writers with no skin in the game could hijack iconic characters and turn them into political statements. Now, the House of Ideas is in ruins. Beloved heroes are in disarray, most series don't even make it to 10 issues, and Marvel is losing its status as the market leader, all so they could publish comics meant to impress a room of people that never show up on Wednesday. Stan and Jack built Marvel on superhero action in a world outside your window. The new Marvel shattered that legacy and rebuilt the brand on diversity bingo and TED Talks. This wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And when you choose cultural relevance and lifestyle branding as your new product, there's no room left for compelling stories or for readers. And if you think the story ends here, wait till you see what happens next. Marvel's feminist firebrand of the 2010s. Her comics career didn't just fizzle out, it collapsed in spectacular fashion. Watch the Chelsea Kane story next. I appreciate the time, and remember, keep thinking critical.
Yeah, definitely check out his videos. Yeah, it is just, it's a mess. I say that all the time, but man, it's a mess, all around mess. I'm curious to know what you guys think. I will see you guys later for new videos coming soon. And yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to pick and choose your comics, which one. Like, the rule of thumb is, when any new comic comes out, give it like the 2 to 3 issues to see if you're feeling it or not. If it's not preachy or pushing some kind of agenda, then you might have like a spot on comic to enjoy. But if after 3 issues, if you feel like it's not for you, I guess vote with your wallet, and just don't support it. You're gonna have to pick and choose the ones that actually are in it to tell a solid story with very interesting characters, that irregardless of what gender or skin color they are. And sometimes, like with many people that I know, especially me, you find yourself going back to read older comics that doesn't have any of this mess in here, where you can see words like he and she pronouns and not one they them in sight, where you can just like enjoy a comic. Sure, it acts, comics are not strangers to talking about certain messages, but it isn't like the first thing out the gate. It's the second or third thing behind it. But you get in certain activists in these rooms, they don't care about any of that stuff. They never did. They fake like they do. But anyway, I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a pleasant evening. Peace.